You are watching or listening to Purham and Associates. For more information, visit rpurham.com and subscribe on all social media platforms at rpurham. Thank you. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Good day to you all. Welcome to Permanent Associates. I'm your host, Randy Purham. Hey, I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. And for the dads out there, I hope you had a very pleasurable, splendid, happy Father's Day yesterday. And, of course, today is Motivated Monday for us. Everybody's getting back on the grind, going back to work if you have a job, or you took a 3-day weekend, depending on what you do in life. But we have a very special show today, and I would like to dedicate this show to Father's Day because we have something that I have never done before. I have a father and son duo as a guest today, and this is going to be very exciting. And I'm looking forward to talking to them today. And we have none other than David and Humberto Cancio. They're authors of Gabriel Lock, Bound by Law, and they are a father and son writing team from Florida. Combining writing styles and lived experience, they bring Gabriel Lock to life. Humberto Cancio was born in Cuba in 1953, but immigrated to the U.S. at the age of 6. At 12, he moved to Spain, where he attended the American School of Madrid for 6 years. Upon his return to the States, he graduated from Duke University with a bachelor's in political science and public policy studies. He attended the University of Florida, obtaining a Juris Doctorate, and he has practiced law for over 40 years in Miami, Florida, representing multicultural, civil, and family law clients, and is a AV preeminent rated. And Humberto is married with four grown children and 3 grandchildren. David Cancio was born in 1991 and has lived in both Florida and North Carolina, graduating from North Carolina State with a major in Spanish. Additionally, he is a native in English, fluent in French, bonjour, and can communicate in Portuguese, German, and Italian. On his way to being a writer, he has made his living through training, sales, and client success. Among other things, David is 34 and is a practicing Catholic and a Knight of Columbus. Ladies and gentlemen, introduce to some and present the others, Mr. David and Humberto Cancio. Welcome, gentlemen, and happy Father's Day to you too.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it very much. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. What did y'all do for Father's Day? Were y'all together, or were y'all doing your own thing, or what was going on with y'all yesterday?
Well, I don't have any children, so I was hanging out with my dad.
Okay. Lucky you. No children. Lucky. It depending, but you're young. You got time. Don't wait too late though, because you're ready. You'd be ready to retire and settle down and go on cruises, and you got the little rugrats. You got to look after and stuff, and it won't be as pleasurable and fun. Yeah. But no, that's a good deal. Y'all together. That's awesome. I want to, Humberto, I want to start with you real quick. You're coming from Cuba, or you was born and slightly raised in Cuba, I would say. And, with the existential economic threats and stuff that's going on with Cuba and these talks that's going on in the media right now, that there's a potentiality for the Cuban crisis to get so exacerbated that it's going to force a mass migration to the United States. I want to get your thoughts on that and whether or not is that something that we can see come to fruition, or this is just, media hype as it stands right now.
Well, Cuba has always had existential problems because the system simply doesn't work. Cuba, before Castro, was a very prosperous nation. It actually had it has all kinds of resources. 95% of the Cuban soil is actually fertile. They have nickel, they have zinc, they have all kinds of minerals that can be mined. And the communists, as they do often, but all the time actually, have managed to ruin the economy beyond conception. A country that has that kind of soil of 95% fertile can't grow enough food for itself. I think that speaks to the incompetence of the Communist Party.
Yeah.
They have always had split things very interesting, 90% for the top 1% and the rest for the people. Their kids, if the kids of the Communist Party go to Paris, buy clothes, they have their own, they drive Ferraris, and that's typical. So I think that Cuba is on the verge of a change simply because they have to. I don't think it's going to take a military intervention.
Okay, I like that approach. Go ahead.
And I was going to say I don't foresee a mass migration like the southern border happening.
Okay.
But what I do see is obviously there's going to be desperation coming out of the island. I just can't anticipate that we're going to open the floodgates and allow everyone to come through. And if that were to be the case, then what we would do is probably place them in a temporary situation. And then as soon as the island were to fall, then we'd probably repatriate those people.
Yeah. I was saying the same thing.
It's funny because Cuba's a special situation. The people are ready to be free, and they're ready to go forward.
Yeah. No, I know they are. I got a couple of friends that lives in Cuba, and the one thing he put to me was it was kind of dark humor, but I get it at the same time. Was that I would just wait for them to die off, and then we could take it over. It's like he was talking about the Cancio family and everybody else. They were like they're all old, so we're just gonna wait till they die off, and if somebody tries to take over, we're just gonna kill them. I was just like, oh wow, okay. So I don't know. I don't think that would be that extreme, but I do foresee that there will be a sort of a economic collapse that will happen, and it will force a regime change within the country without U.S. interdiction. So I can see that. And to your point, David, I don't see a mass migration happening either. They're going to stay there and they're going to fight for their land and their country and move forward. And hopefully I get to book a flight to Havana and sit on the beach and smoke a good Cuban cigar, and all is well. That's been my one dream. So we'll see what happens, but it'll be awesome. David, is there anything else you wanted to add to that about Cuba?
No, I think at the moment my dad pretty much summarily covered it. People are talking about the blackouts and the lack of power. I mean, Cuba's been going through that for generations.
For a long time,
at least something on that scale. So the real question that everybody has to ask, or is perhaps the most pertinent, is what are the chances that the members of this regime either stay in power or stay connected as the United States exerts its influence? That's really the question. Is there going to be a way for Cuba to change systematically as a country with them being close to power? Because we know that it's going to change. There's no other way about it. The question is, Will the Castros have anything to do with it? Will the leaders of the Communist Party have anything to do with it? Will they get rid of the first 5 levels all the way down to do this? This perhaps is the worst time in the communist reign to have Marco Rubio as the Secretary of State. Because clearly he hates all of them.
Yeah.
And is clearly a child of the exile. So I can't anticipate anything that is going to end up being favorable to them. But I guess it's better with him being the Secretary of State than him being president, for example. You know that it would be total war. There would be zero concessions.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point. Marco Rubio being, I don't know if y'all follow like the Facebook memes of Marco Rubio in different outfits. Yeah. I can see that being him, being the president of Cuba next type of thing. So yeah, but you're absolutely right. It is a dichotomy of whether or not it would be better off for Cuba to handle their own business, or look and say, do we want to do this on our own, or do we want this guy coming over and taking and doing things? So that's a great point. And with the Congress, with the anticipation of the November elections coming up, and the anticipation, I would say, of possibly losing the U.S. House and possibly even the Senate, that will stall out, President Trump's remaining 2 years in office. And so we would have to look to see what would happen between now or in 2028 in the presidential elections, and who takes power then. So I would say whatever is going to happen needs to happen, or else we're just going to be sitting around twiddling our thumbs trying to figure out why. So we'll see what happens with that. But Dave, you got a very impressive background, sir. And I was reading your bio and everything. I said, man, he speaks French, Italian, German, Portuguese, and Spanish. And Spanish, yes, thank you. And Spanish. And I traveled around Europe. I lived in Europe myself. I lived in Germany. I lived in Italy. And I worked in my last few years in the military. I worked in NATO. And so most of my office was consisted of the French. So I was able to pick up some French a little bit and German, because my one boss is German, and living in Germany, I picked up the language a little bit, but I couldn't get it to where it just stuck to me. I want to ask you, what is your key recipe or your secret to retain all those different languages and be able to just switch up and speak one versus the other? Tell us that secret.
So I wouldn't say by any means that I'm perfect in any language. Well, I wouldn't say that I'm perfect in any language as a good language theorist, but I would say that obviously I speak English very well and I speak Spanish very well. French, I had a lot of familiarity with it. Number one, it's a Latin or a Romance-based language. Right? So the bases are going to be the same. For example, when you look at the word like to sleep in Spanish, in English, to sleep, which is the verb. In Spanish, you would have dormir. Well, in French, it's dormir. And in Italian, it's dormire. So it's very, very similar when you have a root base. And even if it's different in one language, for example, to eat is comer, but in French, it's manger. In Italian, it's mangiare. So it's very, very similar. And if you know the root endings, it's much easier to be able to conjugate the verbs. Now, for German, which is probably my least fluent language, the best thing about it is that I just have a good survivor's instinct.
Okay.
I used to work for a company that had a branch in the Netherlands, and I had to get to the eastern part of the Netherlands while traveling from Düsseldorf in Germany. So I flew to London, from London to Düsseldorf. From Düsseldorf, I had to get to Gelsenkirchen. From Gelsenkirchen, I had to go across with a train. And this was during the Euro 2024 tournament. So this place was a madhouse. There were people everywhere.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend, if you ever get the opportunity, I'm sure you lived it yourself, but you know that when the Euro happens or the World Cup happens, they just go crazy over there. It's great. And I happened to be there for 2 weeks during the group stage. which was a phenomenal time to be there because there were just matches all the time. But no, I'm able to retain a lot of this because I just, it's base parts, right? So if you know that English is a Germanic language, you know that there are certain parts of the root and the stem that are going to be similar in German as English, and then a lot of the vocabulary base is different. Obviously, the difference, between German and the Romance languages is huge. For example, if you want to say airport, it's aeroport in French or aeroporto in Spanish, but in German, you would say Flughafen, which is completely different.
Completely, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that was where I struggled at. Yeah, that's where I struggled at, with the language. And you're absolutely right. And I thank you for bringing that up, that a lot of the European languages are based, Latin based. And so if you understand Latin, then you can understand all most of the European languages. And Germany, of course, they gotta be different. And, and they want to, do their own thing and create their own languages. It's like, see, y'all just gotta be, okay, all right, whatever. And I used to tease my boss about that. I'm like, I be sitting there talking, conversing with some of the guys, helping them convert some French words to English. And so they would say, hey, Randy, how do you say, so we're doing that. And then the German boss, he'll come in there, he'll like, and it's like, see, nobody asked you. So we would have fun, being in NATO, it was a great experience. We had a lot of fun. You couldn't get away with what we got away with in a civilian world, in like a regular corporate office. Some of the stuff we did, you'd be fired in the first hour. It was just like, but we understood that energy, and we had fun with it because we was all military. So it was, although it was different branches of military in different countries, we understood, hey, we just having fun, type of thing. So no one really took offense to anything that we did to each other, because they would say, oh, you English guys, well, you Americans, you took the Queen's English and you perverted it and did something different with that. So who are you to talk, type of thing. So it's like, touche. So, but yeah, that was all good. It was all good. But no, that's awesome. And like I said, I thank you for, explaining that to the audience, because I'm sure there's probably a lot of polyglots out there, and they're probably like, okay, I need to get back on, this language or brush up on this. I just made an Italian dish yesterday, caprese salad, for lunch. And my wife, she was like, yeah, I don't want to eat this. I shoved one in her face, and she was like, "Oh my God, it's so good." I was like, see." So yeah, I do those things. I pick up certain dishes from the different countries I visited, and I still utilize them to this day, and I enjoy that. Yeah. So I want to talk about y'all's book. I'm from what I gathered, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but is this like a Jason Bourne, but a lawyer version of Jason Bourne? Because I said, okay, this is interesting. Gabriel Lock, Bound by Law. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already read it or picked it up, it's Bound by Law chronicles the story of a young lawyer who chooses a forced resignation, and leaves the state's attorney's office. At his father's civil law firm, he represents the industrious, salt of the earth people trying to build honest lives on the other side of Miami Vice. He is a common man working uncommon cases and practicing law in the Miami of the 1980s, a city branded by cocaine cowboys and an exploding migrant population. Armed with his smarts, morals, and faith, he battles for his clientele, leading him to discover that his duties to his clients and the search for the truth are often at odds. Justice becomes more than black or white, and results that not only affect the client's lives, but his own. Talk to us about what was the impetus, or I guess you could say the motivation for you two to come together and say, we want to write this book.
I'll start. So number one, we were looking for something to make up for lost time. At the time, I was living in North Carolina. I attended North Carolina State University. My family was all living in Florida. And when I graduated in 2013, the economy had not yet quite rebounded. We were no longer in a recession, but the after effects obviously hadn't hit. So in North Carolina, I found a job very quickly after I graduated. I went to go work for BB&T, which is now Truist. And that led to me having a career in North Carolina, and I didn't move back until the pandemic. So he and I started writing really in 2017, but we had really started talking about working on a project together in 2016. I'd say probably, I think it was around September, because we were working on a separate project. And we had worked at that for a while, and we said, honestly, we're just not as enthused to write this. And my dad said, well, do you still want to do a project? I said, yeah. And he said, well, then what do you want to do? I said, Dad, do you remember that case you told me about when I was like 7 years old that involved our family in northern Spain, and you had to go looking for all these people and stuff? And he said, yeah. What do you think that would make a good book? And I said, well, tell me the story again and we'll figure it out. And obviously after he told me the story again, we realized that it would make a great book. But I guess what was beautiful about that was that we started with that one book, but about, I don't know, I'd say a month after we kind of completed our rough draft, my dad was saying, I was thinking about this and I had to remember so many different cases while thinking about the details of this, that all these things started coming back. And so we spent a lot of time kind of planning out. And what we found out was in my dad's 40-year career, 40 plus actually, he's done some interesting things. So that was the basis of a series. But it all started as a project really just to make up for lost time. We never really expected, I guess you could say we anticipated with people giving us, such great feedback. And obviously the book you're reading now is very different from what the book was back then. But, when people started saying you should really do something with this, that's when we thought, okay, maybe we can actually run with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it turned out that we wrote the first book, and as we approached it, we said, I got tired of the tropes with attorneys, because we're either, dishonest, or we're drunks, or we're womanizers, on and on and on.
Right.
I just got fed up with it, and I think many attorneys are fed up with it. So we wrote a book about an attorney who's a family man, who is a Christian, who goes about his work and goes about protecting his clients. And he helps them because many of the clients are also people who haven't been in the country for very long, as was the reality in Miami in the 80s.
Yeah.
Helps them get through it. And they're all, his clients are people that want to do well, that want to work. And so we took a different approach. I think that a lot of times writers depend on the tropes because they haven't been attorneys for very long, or they haven't been attorneys at all.
Yeah.
And the real drama in a legal case are actually the clients. But if you've never had them, then you can't write about them. So you end up writing about the tropes of the attorney.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where that's what we wanted to do completely different. We wanted to actually take people into the mind of the attorney, take them into the negotiations, take them into the trials, take them into the hearings, and make and take them into the background of the clients, so that when you get to the case, it's not just there's a case. No, the clients, what it means to them, and that was our approach.
Let me ask you this one question. What percentage of cases do you think make it to trial?
Okay. I would say probably about, of course, location dependent, but all in all, I would say probably about 30%.
No,
it's less than one.
Yeah, it's less than 1%.
Less than one. Okay.
What I wanted to explain with that was, when people look at TV or books, they're always thinking, oh man, being a lawyer is going to trial. You can meet corporate lawyers that might have one time that they go into trial, like in their careers. The reality is that most of the work is done way before. You have arbitrations and you have mediations and you have settlements. You might have a hearing, but the concept of going to trial, unless specifically you are a trial lawyer where that's all you do, is a very, very small piece of the law. The reality is that the law is so much greater in terms of everything that is required and what goes on, compared to actually going to trial all the time. So we wanted to kind of shift the public idea
Okay.
of, oh my goodness, I have a
Got
problem,
me.
I have to go to trial.
You got me. Yeah, that's good though. That's good to know because you do think like when you hear about cases like I'm in Travis County, so our DA Jose Garza, he throws out cases that should be in trial, type of thing. So it's borderline, or I would say overtly criminal on his part of how he dismisses cases. I mean, everything from murder to human trafficking to drug charges. I mean, he dismisses them left and right type of thing. So the criminals have a utopian society here in Austin, Texas. And you go down, say, for example, you just go 30 minutes up the road to Hayes County, and you're constantly seeing stories of people being thrown in jail, going to trial, and everything else. So there is a difference. So that's why I say it's like it's location dependent on whether or not I guess you say the trial rate exists in those particular areas. But that is a good point that you make, is that only 1% of a lot of cases only make it to trial because of arbitration, settlements and everything else, or is just not enough evidence to warrant a trial. It may be just a clear cut, open and shut. They're like, yeah, you did it, and holler at you later. See you in 30 years, type of thing. So yeah. So yeah, no, that's awesome. And like we have the case right that just wrapped up with the Anthony what's his name Carmelo Anthony case where he's the teenager that stabbed Austin Metcalf. That you would think that trial, although it's semi-public, televised and all that should have ended quicker than what it did. So I don't know what the purpose of dragging that case out was, because it was open and shut in my opinion. I was just like, he clearly is guilty. So what are we doing here? So, but here we are. So that's good though.
When you have something, unfortunately, that actually, one of the reasons why Gabriel leaves the state attorney's office is because he doesn't believe that politics involve, or rather that politics should exist in the law. But as long as all of us have been alive, we know that politics exists in the law. So when you think about how long that might have taken compared to being open, like you were saying, open and shut, right? It was a unanimous jury. It was very clear. If I'm not mistaken, they gave him life without parole. They did not opt for the death penalty. So when you give somebody a sentence like that, it's pretty clear. But unfortunately, the media has run with it. They've turned it into a case of race because there were 12 white jurors, and obviously Carmelo Anthony happens to be black, and so it turned into this big thing. One of the things that we actually did in Bound by Law was explain the picking of a jury.
Okay.
And that's actually one of the chapters that leads into the trial. It's actually one of the biggest parts. It's 2 chapters where the attorneys determine with prejudice or not to strike certain members of the jurors. And so you find out that one of them can't be part of it because he used to work in a nightclub where he was a bouncer, and he'd have to throw people out of there all the time. So he was hitting people with a baton and this and that and the other, and he gets struck from the jury. And you would think, well, he's seen this thing all the time. He would be the perfect person to have on a jury. Well, no, because as somebody who deals with this all the time and has to engage in violence, he may be less sensitive to the nature of a crime, or he may be more sensitive to what the evidence may be. He may have a bias. And so that's part of the reason why we included that in there. And I can't begin to tell you how many readers came up to us afterwards and said, oh my goodness, I had no idea that this is what that was actually like. Yes, it's not just a randomly chosen. This is a very, very, very non-biased choosing, selection method.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, because you have both sides selecting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is ladies and gentlemen, I want to debunk one thing for the audience, that there is that burning narrative that the jury was like all white. That is not true, and that was the other thing that I guess you could say got the the general public in an uproar. There was a mixture of Hispanics and Asians on the jury as well. Now, given that, you could, depending on where you're from, you could say, "Oh, that's still an all-white jury." Depending on where you're from, okay, I could concede to that argument. I could, but nonetheless, it was a mixed race jury, either way. And I would further the argument is like, unless you drew DNA samples just because they looked white, doesn't mean necessarily that they were white, especially if they were Hispanic. So, I don't know what. But to your point, I love that you break that down in the book on how jury selection actually works, because a lot of people don't know that. And you're totally right, because we dealt with this. I had to deal with this with some court martials in the military, and picking them, although it's a military jury, and you just think like, okay, I need 2 lieutenants, 2 captains, 2 sergeant first classes. You go through that on that mindset, but that prosecution and the defense, they come in there and they start weeding through what you picked out. And they're like, yeah, no, we're not using this person because, to your point, they used to work at a strip club, or now they got 6 kids of their own, so they're going to be totally unbiased. And, it was a child abuse case. And so it was just like, okay, yeah, so back to the drawing board. And you start all over again. You're like, look, man, just give me a bunch of privates and we just call it a day. And they're like, nope, we're not doing that either. It's like, damn. So it was a dragged out process. What should have like started the trial in, say, 2 months, it actually took almost a year before that particular case with the trial. And when he was found guilty. And he's actually, I actually consider him I'm not going to say a friend, but we worked together on a daily basis. We was in different platoons, but we worked together, quite often. And, good guy. You wouldn't think that it wasn't child abuse. It was more, he was being a parent, and his culture and background where he was from, they put hands on their kids, when they out of line. So it was kind of like for black folks, it was
parenting of the
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was for the black folks, we was like, okay, he whipped his kid's ass, so what's the problem? And everybody else was like, oh my God, no, you can't do that. Oh, and so he ended up he was found guilty, and it was a beautiful, beautiful ending to this, though. He was found guilty. We had to escort him up to Mannheim prison in Germany, a military outfit up there at the time. And he, got inside, they ripped his rank off and all that kind of stuff. And, the whole perk walk type of thing for the military. And a couple weeks later, I see him at the commissary. I'm like, my eyes playing tricks on me? And so I walked over to him, like, tapped him on the shoulder. I was like, I said his name and stuff. And I was like, what's going on? And he was like, I was released from prison. And I was like, oh, why? I was like baffled. I was just like, well, what's going on here? And so he explained, he was like, they convicted me based on my religion and based on my beliefs. And they cannot do that. It's against the Constitution. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And so he was released because of, he was Muslim, number one, African, and from another country, in Africa, and was just serving in our military, in the U.S. military. That was his culture, kids out of pocket, you spank them type of thing. And they could not convict him in the military on those bases alone. So they had to let him out. And so it was an interesting time, man. He got his rank back and went on to serve another few years and everything, and then got out, I guess, and went on doing some other stuff. But it was, to me at that time, this was 2000, 2001 time frame. It was shortly before we deployed to Iraq, the first go around. But yeah, it was, who knew? So
yeah, there's another point, which is that the courts form the third branch of our government. And when you start writing that all attorneys are either drunks or womanizers or informal people, you're very directly affecting the third branch of government. That also gives you the podium or the stand to begin to criticize the system, because after all, they're all corrupt, right? So that worries me a lot. That Hollywood is indirectly contributing to that, whether they mean to or not.
Yeah.
And so, after I've seen in the last couple of years, no matter what your political stance is, how the courts are being used, I think that that's a very big danger. If you don't have justice, impartial justice in a society, you can't have freedom, because
Yeah.
people don't have hope of having justice.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to write a book together with David. We sat down and we wanted to write a book about a guy who's good, about a guy who does it right, and about the system, so that people can understand how significant it is to make sure that we have an impartial system in this country, that we have a system where the common person can go before court and expect to be treated fairly, and without any politics, without any racial element, without any societal element, but simply on the facts of that particular case in front of the court at that time.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that, we don't have a society. We don't have a free society.
100%
And so
agree.
that concerns me.
I will 100% agree with that. And, that brings me to, I'm glad you brought that up, because we do see, I guess you say, a spoilage in our judicial system right now in America, where it is perceived that, lawyers, it's a running joke about the perception of lawyers. We call them liars, so it's all a blend of the words, so there's that. I work with a bunch of lawyers here in Austin too, so in politics, and we poke fun at each other about that. And so you got that side of the house, right? And then you have the side of the house of judicial activism, where judges are, they're not necessarily looking at the case on the merits alone. They're looking at the politics of, like, hey, I gotta curry favor to my donor base. Otherwise, I won't win re-election, type of thing. And so the cases get thrown out, or they get these crazy sentences to thrown on them, and what have you. And it's like, well, the law says this, so we're respecting this outcome. And they're like, I got judicial discretion. And it's like, I hate that word. I've grown to hate that, that term, judicial discretion or prosecutorial discretion. I'm starting to hate those two terms, because it brings in the politics into the judicial system versus looking at, okay, this warrants this punishment or this does not, type of thing. And looking at the facts of the case, like you mentioned, they have the discretion of whether or not they want to play with somebody's life or not, based on the politics of the day. And a lot of people, they're right to call it out, but how do we fix it? That would be my ultimate question is, okay, we see it going on, but what do we do to fix it? And I don't know if you have an answer for that, Humberto or David, but yes,
He's
go ahead,
got the
please.
answer.
I've got the answer.
I don't have the gray hair to do that yet.
Right.
Imagine that the law is like going to a store and picking out a suit. Now that suit is pre-made. So you put it on, and it's a little bit wide here, and it's a little bit this here, and so it really doesn't fit, but it's close enough. You want something to fit well, so you go to a custom tailor, and he or she fits it just right. The problem is that laws aren't written custom; they're written off the rack. So the only way you can customize it for the particular person, for the particular accused, for the particular facts of the case, is to customize it. And the only way you can do that is with discretion. So you really don't hate the word discretion. You hate the phrase abuse of discretion.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay? Where they come in and they don't fit the suit to the person and the circumstances. They fit the suit to outside circumstances that are political in nature and not legal in nature, and that's abuse.
Yes.
So what we hate really is the abuse. The problem is that in our society, everything is political because people perceive that their whole lives depend on their point of view and that their point of view is correct. The other side is wrong. And so they permit and look for the abuse to correct what they think is a wrongly written law, instead of saying, no, we go in, we rewrite the law and make it right. So when they don't have the majority to do that, then some certain individuals take it in their hands to rewrite the law, and that's where the abuse happens. So we don't hate discretion. Discretion is necessary in order not to be abusive. Right?
I love that point. I love it. You're absolutely right about that, and I love that point because there is discretion is necessary in the judicial system, but the abuse of it is where the problem. And the activism. I will also say the activism of it all, because you have activist judges that only exist to be I guess you would say, a doorstop for certain politicians, if you will. Because here in Texas, especially down in the Rio Grande Valley, South Texas, there's a lot of that going on as well. The judge's sole mission in life is to stop the opposition party from doing anything. Anytime a lawsuit comes up and all that kind of stuff, like we're dealing with trying to close our primaries. So yeah, activist judges, not even looking at the law. They just like, no, I'm not even hearing this case. Nope, we're going to delay it for 6 more months. And it's like, the election will be already passed by then. My point exactly. Have a good day. You're like, wow. So you have these things going on. And so the activism and the abuse of discretion, I love that. And I 1000% agree with that. And, to your point, Humberto, how you look at that, how do we correct course on such activities? Because the general society, they're too busy to care. They complain about it, but they don't care. They're just like, okay, we just gotta wait them out, and vote them out of office. But they end up getting reelected because they got name recognition, they got money, and whatever else. So, do you see that we have a pathway to correct the judicial system as it stands, or is this something that's going to further deteriorate as time goes on?
Well, I certainly hope it doesn't further deteriorate, because then we go back to what I said initially, which is we destroy the legal system, and therefore we destroy the country.
Yeah.
At some point, people have to realize that a judge is not a legislator, that a judge is simply a person that we have selected to execute the law, to protect the law, to make sure the law is upheld, and so forth. We keep on, attacking the Supreme Court. When the Supreme Court was extremely liberal, and it was, but it was a necessary liberal. If we had not had a liberal court, we might not have had the decisions that were instrumental in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s to make this country right. Now we have a conservative court that is also making instrumental decisions to make this country right, and we don't realize it. There was a fundamental decision last year, or year before, and the name escapes me, but let me explain. There was a decision years ago where the court said that if the bureaucracy made rules, it was okay. And they were given the benefit of the doubt. If the bureaucracy may put in this rule, they know better. So you're going to have to prove that it was an absolutely wrong rule. This is simplifying, in order to win. So people would go and question the government, basically with 90% chances to lose. Now, this court, who's more conservative, said, you know what? No, the bureaucracy cannot legislate. The
Yep.
bureaucracy can act, but it can't legislate. That's up to
Correct.
the legislators, and they can't be lazy about legislating. Now, legislatures were not happy with the concept that they're lazy, but it's true.
It is
So
true.
now, now that presumption that the government is right is out the window.
Mhm.
That's a huge decision.
Yeah,
People
I agree.
can fight the government on equal grounds.
Hmm. I love that.
That's
I
why
actually love
you
that
have
case.
to go. That's why you have to go back and forth. Sometimes you have a liberal court, sometimes you have a conservative court, and people have to understand that ebb and flow keeps us honest.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
100%.
we need to understand that, and we need to get back to the roots of the country,
Yep.
where we all speak to one another, we all decide on what's best for all of us, and the majority rules without overrunning the minority, without
Mhm.
oppressing the minority.
Right.
The
Absolutely.
minority isn't the one that rules, it's the majority.
Hmm.
Why?
Yep.
Because it's been my experience that most of the majorities have common sense. Sometimes they're completely off, but that's why we have the courts to straighten them out.
To straighten them out. Yep. Put the balance
It's
back
all
in there.
about balance.
Yep. Yes. And that was what you're referencing to, sir, is I'm familiar with the case, the Chevron deference case. And I particularly am fond of that case because I deal with bureaucracies here in Austin in my line of work, and I tend to buck the system a lot. And so it's like, just because you wrote this doesn't mean that it's right. You're an idiot just like everybody else. And they sit there and they go, how dare you? I'm like, you're just an appointment. Shut up. And then it's like, this guy here, he just comes here, I'm like, oh, I don't care. Anyway, but David, I want to turn to you real quick. Asterian, BC. Talk to us about Asterian.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. So Asterian started 6 months ago.
Okay.
I guess a little longer than that now. Now, it's been something that has been in the works for a while. But my dad and I have published 2 books. The Gabriel Lock Series has Bound by Law, and then it has its follow-up book, which is Bound by Fate. So there are 7 total,
I love that.
of which we've completed 2. The third one will come out in April of 2027.
Okay.
So when we completed the first book and we published it, which our publisher is, Asterian is a publishing and book handling company, but our books are actually published under contract with Atlas Elite Publishing. So I want everyone to know that. Tidbit for anyone who's ever trying to get published: never publish your own books. Always get them published somewhere else. If not, the first thing people tell you is you publish your own books. So with that being said,
I agree with you on that one.
yeah.
I did the self-publishing on my first book, and then I went professional on the second one. And yeah, there is a difference. True. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. But continue, please. I'm sorry.
So no, it's all right. It's all right. So when Gabriel Lock came out, we got a lot of different phone calls. We got really great critical reception. Gabriel Lock so far has been highly rated. So we started getting a lot of calls, not only saying congratulations, but how did you do it? Who did you go with? How did you get published? What was your journey like, etc.
Yeah.
So we kind of had already been thinking about the possibility of having our own book company. But when the second book came out, that's really what confirmed it. It was the knowledge base that we had. And not only that, just seeing how many people had actually been deceived by so-called publishers and printers. People masquerading as true advocates, which they're not. On top of the fact that the traditional publishing market, there are 5 large publishers, right? There's the big 5. And all of them are considered to have a conservative label. And what I mean by that is they have one brand, one small section that is conservative. So if that's the one conservative thing, everything else must be something else.
Something else. Yeah.
And we know
Exactly.
from the woke mind virus that has been pushed around this country that one of the first things that communists and socialists and crazy people attack is what people are reading, listening to, and watching. And so that's part of the reason why we wanted to start Asturian. We wanted to give people a real chance to publish real material. Now, we don't just take everybody. You have to have, obviously the good nuts and bolts, if you will, for us to turn it into a functioning car. But the point is that we started this because we wanted to give people an opportunity to not only have their work published, but produce the best of their work. So a lot of what we take pride in is actually the additional stuff, the coaching, I guess you could say the developmental editing, and all the fundamental pieces that allow us to function as a publisher with a true system of accountability for our authors.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We take pride, and my son has a very good phrase, is that we don't push you to write what you write, what we want you to write.
I got it.
There you go.
Let me take it. All right. We don't put a good book in you. We pull a great book out of you. And we do that because we believe that when you come to us, you're only giving us the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
There is always going to be so much more there. But if you don't have the right questions, if you don't have the right frame of mind, if you don't have an advocate that is going to work with you to shift the perspective, how do we get the best thing out of it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The problem a lot of times with developmental editors or with editors as a whole is that they only work with you once the manuscript is done. But do they work with you in the planning stage to take something that could be as good as Starry Night, but turn it into the Mona Lisa?
Yeah.
And our goal is to take the pieces that you have and make the best version of what that idea is so that you can create the optimal version of the final manuscript.
Right. Including finding pieces that the author
Has overlooked.
Exactly, or has thought about but hasn't included or has intimated that there is, but it's not quite there, it can't be seen. So that's really our job. And we take it very seriously.
And I guess the joy of that is that if we hadn't written two good books, I could understand people might not think that we know what we're doing, but we actually wrote two really, really well-received books. We're not Dan Brown famous yet or J.K. Rowling famous yet, but the point is that
after this show, you will be.
Well,
here's the hoping. Here's what
I want to tell people. If you're famous for the wrong reasons, while that's still profitable, it's not as honorable. So I'd rather be famous for the right reasons and have the honor and hopefully the profit.
Correct. Yes, I 1,000% agree.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun, and we've met with a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that have a lot to say.
Yeah.
And
yes,
we want those voices to be heard, and we want them to be heard clearly. I understand that the other side has great influences, especially in the Big Five. So we thought, the traditional United States should also, the traditional people of faith, people of principle, people of family should also have a voice. Mm-hmm. And that's part of
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
We're starting a series pretty soon, which we're going to put, which is to help people at very low cost to begin to organize their thoughts and stuff for books.
Okay.
We're hoping that will bring people who have thought about writing books, but don't have the 2 years, the 3 years, and the
10 years of experience of doing this.
Exactly. And they don't have the $10 or $15 or $20,000 that it takes to do these and bring them along so that they get a taste for it, so that they realize what they can do and what they can't do, and what they can write and what they can't write.
Think masterclass, but done by two guys that can actually say, we did this. We weren't made by somebody big, right? We didn't have a giant publishing house behind us. As a matter of fact, they didn't want our stuff to come out because we didn't fit the tropes and the narratives, and we refused to push that. And when I had conversations about needing to change the integrity of the work to satisfy what was in at the moment, our answer was frankly no. We were not going to sacrifice the integrity of an attorney who is meant to protect the integrity of his clients.
Yeah. Wow.
And
Wow. I love this. Ladies and gentlemen, AsturianBC.com for the listeners that's listening today. Asturian, that's ASTURIAN. I'll say that again. ASTURIANBC.com. And that is where you can go and check out this brand new book publishing company that's coming out. Well, it's out, but you can link in with these guys and see if they will help you out. If not, I ain't gonna say you trash. I'm joking because I have a similar story as you guys. When I just published my second book here. It was released in April. Polarizing America. And all the things, thank you. All the things that you just said, Dave and Humberto, you're absolutely 1000% right. I was just sitting here just reminiscing as you was talking about it. Like, it took me 5 years to write it. And, being in the military at the time and overseas, traveling, working, raising a family, and all that, and sitting down at night or during the day if it was like kind of quiet at work and just trying to punch out a paragraph at a time type of thing and then put it away for a year or two. And then you forget about it. You're like, oh, wait, I was writing a book. Hold on. let me find it in the hard drive, somewhere. And, you pull it back up and you like go through and make sure it's still flowing the way you want it to flow. And then you finally put that last period on the book. In the draft version, you say, thank God this is finished for now. And you send it to you find a publisher, you find somebody who's willing to even work with you. And that was a nightmare. One company, they wanted $20,000. And I was just like, I said, kick rocks. I'm like, I wouldn't even, no, I'm just not doing that. And so finally finding somebody that said, okay, we like this, let's work together. And they tore it apart, and that draft copy, that first draft came back. I cried. I was like, I consider myself a really good writer. So it was like going through all of that. And then, he's like, man, the punctuation here, the grammar here, change this out. What do you mean by this? And, all of that. You guys know. And so it's just like, man. And so that was almost a year of doing that, going back and forth. And then finally the finished product, it was like, okay, this was better. Like you said, you thought you were great, but this is better. It was like, this is better than what I originally wrote. Okay, cool. And then it gets out there and the finished product comes back to you in its, complete form. Yeah, boxes of it, but nonetheless, you're like, oh my God, this is done. And you feel great about it. Go ahead.
And that's everything that we went through. And by the way, any readers out there, unless you've written about 30 books already, chances of you having a perfect rough draft is just not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
But you can get a lot better if you take our course.
There you go. Absolutely. AsturianBC.com, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, absolutely. You're totally right. You're totally right.
But what I was going to say was, you have to live a certain level of pain. If you want to be good at anything, you better get really comfortable with the word humility, because you cannot get better unless you are humble.
Yep.
People want to know, people ask me how we did this. I'm going to tell them two things. It might come into three, but at least two things to start. Number one, do not ever doubt the existence of God. You may be angry at God. You may have, you may love God at certain times. You may think he's your best friend. You may be like, man, this isn't God. This is the devil. I got news for you. God exists, and I have conclusive proof of that because my dad and I, who are both very headstrong people managed to collaborate on a work for the last 9.5 years of our lives, and both of us are still alive. So that's number one.
We didn't kill each other
We
at
did
all.
not kill each other. So that's number one.
Yes.
Number two, if you really want to do something well, you have to put results over your ego.
Mhm.
That humility. We liken ourselves at Asturian not to just simply being your editor. We are like your trainer from Rocky. We are Burgess Meredith. We are going to push anyone. And quite frankly, anytime you have a relationship with an editor, it should be as close to that as possible. Why? Fitzgerald, Hemingway, Thomas Wolfe. Their editor was Maxwell Perkins. He pulled the greatness of those books out of them. He never once put greatness in them. And that's what he did. He made sure to pull that greatness out of them and not put in his own thoughts or change it to mediocrity. Now, he had to cut certain things and prune, which you'll find. But without a doubt, you want to make sure that you find an editor in a company that believes in you, like a boxing trainer would. Because when you're trying to write something, it is literally a fight for your life. You want to make sure that it is the best representation of your idea and you that you can create.
Yep, I agree 100%. Thank you for that advice. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you're contemplating on writing a book, this is the advice you need. You need to be prepared for that long haul. That it's a training course. You know, you're training for that championship fight, and that's a great analogy. You know, you get the right boxing coach, you know, the editors, and you are preparing yourself for that championship fight. And that championship title is your book is on that bookshelf. And I was so, I guess you could say I was like soaking in the moment. I had literally drove around Austin. And I don't know if you've ever been to Austin, Texas. It's pretty huge. I drove around Austin to every Barnes and Noble, looking for my book just to see it on the shelf and take pictures with it, you know, type of thing. And then the clerk would come by and was like, "What are you doing? You know, are you looking for something?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was looking for my book." You know, she was like, "Oh, okay, I get it." And so it became a fun thing, you know, throughout the whole day. I took a whole Saturday doing this, and a couple of the Barnes and Nobles they had me sign the book, and they put an autographed copy sticker on there and everything. They put it on like the little display table as you come in, and I had a lot of fun with that. And so it was I didn't sleep that night. I was just so like on a high that it was just like, man, this is really cool, you know. And so I get it. And for those that want to experience something like that, ladies and gentlemen, once again, you know, go to StyrianBC.com and check these guys out. Check out their books, more importantly. So you get an idea of the level of work that went into this. Gabriel Lock, Bound by Law. You said, correct me if I'm wrong, you said it's a 7-part series, right?
Yeah, so this is book one. Bound by Law is book one of 7 books. And then Bound by Fate, which is the second book, that just came out in November. And that was ranked even higher than the first one. And that is the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. My dad and I will both say it was the hardest thing, because when you write your first book and they're related, you know, or rather when you write the first book, you have to do a good job. But now when you've got a follow-up, it's got to be even better.
Better, yes.
And
yeah, I agree.
When you're not 100% sure on which direction you're going to go with it, it's rough. I wrote about a third. Well, my dad and I wrote about a third of that book, but I mean, my experience specifically was on the trains of Spain and Portugal for a friend of mine's wedding. That's when I got the inspiration, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And we were terrified. We turned it in about, 5 weeks before it was supposed to come out. So thank God. Special shout out to Angela Schutz, who is our editor that we love to death, because she should have murdered us.
Awesome. Gentlemen, where can people follow you and support you and all that good stuff?
Absolutely. So you can obviously check us out at AsturianBC.com. You can also check out the books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you just type in Gabriel Lock, either Bound by Law or Bound by Fate, it will easily pop up. But I would say on top of that, if you want to follow us on X, follow us at the Gabriel Lock. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can look us up as either the Gabriel Lock Series or d.h.cancio. And of course, look us up with Asturian BC. And we're just excited. Thank you so much for having us. It's been truly a pleasure. It's been a joy to speak with you and meet you. And for all your listeners, don't ever write yourselves off. Many of you have life experiences that are greater than anything you'll see in the movies. Trust me.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Every life is inherent of dignity. And so trust me, there's plenty of dignity in your stories.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Humberto?
Yes.
Any parting words of wisdom?
I agree with David. You'd be surprised what stories have. And when you think of the world, always remember that the world is made up of stories. History has the word story in it. That tradition of stories about people is what comes down to us as a race, and what makes us a race. So that's the most important thing that I can say. So everybody carries their own stories, and stories they've heard, and stories they've lived, and that's what gives living wealth. It gives us wealth. Money's great, buys a lot of things, but stories, they keep you going. They keep you going.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you again once again, and truly appreciate it. And y'all be safe out there, and enjoy the book tours and getting that feedback. And I look forward to seeing the next set come out.
Absolutely.
Well, all right, yeah. And same to you too. Enjoy your book tours.
Thank you. I'm working on it. All right. God bless, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, that is David and Humberto Cancio. Hey, check out their books, Gabriel Lock Series, Bound by Law. You will love it, I'm sure, especially those that are of the legalese world, and you like that kind of stuff. Check it out. And if you're not, check it out anyway. And if you're interested in getting your working on a book, getting it published and whatnot, and getting an editorial, you can go to SturianBC.com once again and link in with these guys and get started on that journey. I'm telling you right now, if you do that, don't hate yourself, because you're gonna be like, man, I feel so dumb. I got all these edits to do, and isn't. No, that's part of the process. It's just what it is. You're not Merriam-Webster, okay? So you're gonna have issues with your writing, and it's okay. It's all good. So, and this is why these people exist. Is to help you out and get you on that path to success and everything else. So, folks, with all that being said, I am way over time today, but that's okay. It's my show. I do what I want. But I do have some stuff to do. So I will holler at you all. Y'all be safe out there. God bless you all. I hope you all, once again, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. And we'll catch you all sometime this week. I think I'll be back tomorrow. I gotta look at my calendar again. I'm not sure. But yeah, holla, and be safe.
I hope you enjoyed today's program. You can follow, like, share, subscribe on Spotify, Substack, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and your news. And also, you can download Let the Truth Be Told app on your favorite streaming platforms, such as Fire Stick, Apple TV, and Roku. Take care. God bless.